Recording is started.
Good morning, everybody. Just give it about one more minute while people come into the room.
Jared, there was a group in a Teams meeting. So I'll go back into that one and let them know it's a Zoom meeting.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. Looks like we're getting a good group of people here. Might have a couple people coming over from a Teams meeting. Okay. Great. All right, and I think we should probably get started. All right, well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining. We're so happy to have you here. Welcome to our second re-engagement convening of this grant cycle. So just a few things to start off, just a couple announcements. One, this meeting is being recorded, just so you're aware. I think everybody's coming in on mute, but if you could just make sure that you're also muted while we're in the main group here. And I think that's pretty much it. So as you all know, we had our first in-person re-engagement convening yesterday at the Public Service Building. That was great to convene people in person for the first time in a couple of years, and we had some really fruitful discussion, and I think we're going to have the exact same thing today. We've got a lot of opportunities for you to break out and talk amongst yourselves, and we've got some good information to share. So we're looking forward to some really fruitful discussion there. We could move to the next slide, please. Okay, so Paul, did you have something that you wanted to jump in and say at all?
Yes, thanks. So I know just wanted to update everybody a little bit on Tunisia, and I know there's some confusion on the announcements that went out, and we had some adjustments with it. But Tunisia, our admin for our re-engagement team, unfortunately was involved in a car accident and is at home and doing fine, but is recovering. And so I appreciate everybody's understanding as we were scrambling last week with trying to make sure that we had all the current information out to you all. So again, Tunisia's doing okay back in Portland and has been communicating with myself and our director. So we're happy to say that she's doing well and look forward to her rejoining once she's recovered from that. So, but with that, I'll turn it back over to Jared.
Great, thanks, Paul. Yeah. Our thoughts are with Tunisia, and we're doing what we can to support her right now. So thanks for that update, Paul. So just a review of the agenda. So today, we're going to start off with some welcome and introductions. We'll break you out and give you an opportunity just to do some quick introductions. And then we'll move into some updates, about the collaborative grants. We've got some upcoming information that we wanted to share. Then we'll move into some data, show you some data from the last grant cycle and just some numbers that might resonate with you in your communities, and have a little discussion about that. And then we'll move into some final breakout discussions where we'll break you out into different groups. And we've got a whole bunch of questions to discuss in that. So a lot of opportunity to interface with your colleagues and with other people doing this work today. So we're excited for that, and we could move to the next slide, please. All right. you have seen all these slides before in previous meetings, so this probably is not anything new, but just to recap, wanted to give you again our re-engagement mission and vision. So the mission of this program and of these grants is to support community-based re-engagement efforts to align education, employment, service providers, and community resources for disconnected youth. And so in that, our vision, we see a vision of community-based, youth-centered re-engagement programs and services at all levels, at the city, county, and regional levels across the state. Oregon Youth Re-Engagement Fund really is just the name that we call the overall fund where these grants come from. And the Youth Re-Engagement Network is really that system that we are trying to create statewide. And that's part of this convening is part of that system building process as we hone that system moving forward. So more opportunities for interfacing and connection to come as we build that network. Okay, goals, again, you've seen these before, but really the goals of the re-engagement system is to support community-based re-engagement service providers in reconnecting disconnected youth to their education. And under that, we see reconnection to education with intensive supports as extraordinarily important. That high school completion component is really what we're going for. All youth, as you know, have to have access to programs that will provide a high school credential. Strengthening and supporting career pathways and post-secondary education and training is also important. Those transitions moving beyond high school and what comes next. And then those collaborative networks, again, this convening part of that, just creating that collaboration and that opportunity to interface with others doing this work across the state. So goals for today. One is to create a safe place that builds trust between grantees, re-engagement programs, and the state, to provide professional opportunities for learning, discussion, planning, and enriched partnerships, to encourage and honor grantee voice and choice as part of this required collaborative work, and of course, also to ensure that youth voice and lived experience remain at the heart of what we're doing here. All right, and with that, we're going to break you into some intro breakout groups already. So we're going to take about 10 minutes and we're going to divide into groups of about 5 people. And we ask that you each just take a couple minutes in those groups. You'll see here the prompts. One, if you could just share your name, your organization, your role, one thing you think you can bring to this convening, and one thing you hope to get out of this convening. All right. Couple minutes each, just go round robin in your group, and we'll take about 10 minutes to do that.
And Jared, I think it's important to note that there isn't a facilitator assigned to the group. It'll just be the groups of 5.
Yep. Thank you. All right, you should see those breakups pop up, and there you go. Okay, looks like we've got folks coming back in. I think breakout rooms don't officially close for another 30 seconds or so, so we'll let people come back. Okay. Welcome back, everybody. I think we've got everyone rejoining the room. So we hope you had some good introductions. Maybe you met some people that you haven't met yet. And we realized that we also haven't introduced ourselves as YDD staff yet. So we're going to go around and do that. I'll just start off. Jared Shaw, Grant Manager and Workforce Policy Analyst and member of the Reengagement team. So super thrilled to have you all here today, and I'll toss it over to Molly.
Good morning, everyone. Molly Burns, Reengagement Grant Manager and Policy Analyst. Yesterday we did our in-person, and so it's like this adjustment back to the Zoom world, but thank you so much for being here, and I will pass it over to Paul.
Good morning. Sorry, I was trying to find mutes. If you see me looking around my screens, I'm trying to share my screen and work with help behind the scenes. But I'm Paul Sell. I'm the Reengagement Systems Manager and Youth Grants Team Lead. Pleasure to have you all here today, and looking forward to it. And like Molly said, yeah, it is different from going in person to virtual. So, but hopefully the Zoom shift for us in these presentations has been successful for you so far, and look forward to seeing how that all works. I'll turn it over to Joy.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joy. I'm the administrative specialist. I'm going to be supporting the re-engagement meetings, and I look forward to the conversations we're going to have. I'm going to pass it on to Melissa.
Thanks, Joy. Thanks, everyone. Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see you all on the Zoom screen. My name is Melissa Gallardo. I'm the executive support for the Youth Development Division, and our director, Brian Detman, who will be popping in later to say hello and see you all as well. And I think I'll pass it to Bill. I don't see your face, Bill, but I think you're here. If you are, chime in.
All right. Thank you, Melissa. I don't know. I think sometimes if I talk, then it'll bring me up. My name is Bill Hansel. I am a grant manager with YDD. Although currently not specifically on the re-engagement team, I had a lot to do in the creation of some of the re-engagement issues in the early days programming. And I'm also the data guy for YDD, so I have my finger in a lot of the different pies of YDD just from the data side of things. So I'm fascinated to be here and learn more about what's going on in that realm. And I don't know, I think that I'm the last staff to go, so I'll kick it back to Jared if that's the case.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Do we have any other YDD staff on the line? No, don't think so. Okay. Thank you all. And I'm going to hand it over to Paul for the next section.
Thank you, Jared. And I forgot to mention that Joy got a call from us last week. She's been with the YDD team just over 2 weeks, I believe. And so when we were getting things organized, I want to just a huge shout out to Joy and her appreciation for jumping right in Tanasia's absence to help behind the scenes. And so again, appreciate Joy doing that. And we look forward to getting to know Joy ourselves as she's new to our team. So just real quick, we bumped this early in the presentation because we know it's important information to get out to everybody. So you can see just a couple updates. In the next slide, I'll show you who the 11 new re-engage or the planned new 11 re-engagement grantees are for our re-engagement collaborative grant, which we are calling the RCG. And I know several of those anticipated awardees are on our call today. So welcome. And look forward to working with you on that. Just to kind of lay the groundwork, the Reengagement Opportunity Grant is really focused, which many of you already have received, is really focused on that support and the direct youth services that each of you are providing in terms of re-engagement. The collaborative grant can offer those youth services and those direct re-engagement services, but it also is intended to try to bring together the other organizations in the area in which they're serving. So we're excited that we have 6 of our 11 regional solutions regions that now have a collaborative grant. And so we'll be working pretty closely with them in gathering and supporting the work of pulling the youth services programs throughout those regions together. A couple updates, and I think many of you have seen as we've done our regional outreach initiative. I think we've met with many of you on that. But some of our upcoming RFAs, just to be aware of, the re-engagement grants, which obviously you wouldn't be here if you didn't have one of those, most likely. Those new RFAs for the 23-25 biennium is anticipated this winter, early spring. So winter 23, spring 23, anticipate those RFAs coming out. Those funds would begin July 1 of 2023. Community investment grants, those are some other kind of less restrictive funds that we have. One of our largest pots of money, highly competitive grants throughout the state. Those have currently there's 4 separate initiatives within the community investment grants. Those are going to be, the RFAs for that will be launched about the same time. And just as a reminder, if you have a re-engagement grant, you can still apply for a community investment grant as well. Those are kind of those other services that aren't as connected to education. We have just launched our Future Ready Youth programs. That's the first round of that grant is in review right now. So some of you may have applied for those funds. The second RFA for that will probably be before the legislative session this year is what we're hoping to get that out. And again, all of those funds for those upcoming RFAs will become available July 1 of 2023. If you have not signed up, and I know Bill hounds me on this all the time, if you have not signed up for our listserv and the email communications on that, that's the best way to make sure you're most up to date on those on that side. Another exciting piece that we're working on, we are taking this concept of professional development funding to our council this September. So we do not have this approved yet, but our hopes is to be able to offer some professional development funding to our re-engagement awardees to be able to use before the end of this biennium. And there's some great re-engagement conferences that are starting to come back online that are now in person, as well as just some other needs that some people may be seeing that they want to provide some very specific professional development for as part of your re-engagement services. So we are going to be taking this proposal for approval to our council in September, that we would have kind of like a sort of mini RFA or mini application process that any of our re-engagement awardees could apply for to receive direct funding with that. And our hope is that it's a big enough PD or professional development option for you that you could pay for either some travel and some conference registrations, as well as the hotels, to be able to access some of those national conferences that are really supportive for youth re-engagement on that side. So I'm going to pause there. I'm watching chat as well. If you have questions, please do. I know Joy and I are both trying to monitor the chat. So if you have questions, please jump in there on that, or feel free to unpause and just let us know if you have questions on any of that information. While we're waiting for that, I will bump it to the next slide, make sure I'm on the right screen. These are the 11 anticipated re-engagement collaborative grants that are going out. You can see again that we have 6 of our 11 regional solutions regions in the breakdown in terms of where those are. Excited to say, and I know many of you had heard that we did not get any re-engagement funds to the greater Eastern Oregon, meaning east of the Bend area. We do now have a collaborative grant that's starting up in Eastern Oregon outside of Ontario. So excited to start seeing that spread of that. You can see the names there. We're currently in the grant negotiation phases of all those. So again, we anticipate all of the 11 of those awards moving forward, but they are coming to an area into those different regions. And I also should note, we will send this PDF out too. I see some people looking at the screen, so apologize if it's hard to read, but we'll make sure you get a PDF of this here. So, all right, with that, other timelines. I kind of covered this a little bit as well, but this is just kind of the general breakdown of what we anticipate over the next year of just YDB in general. So you can see technical assistance around the RFA is going to happen each quarter. With that tentative RFA launch that winter spring of 2023. Our YDC meetings are definitely listed on there. We don't have a firm date for September as of yet, but that will be updated as needed on that regard. There is a conference that we wanted to draw people's attention to as well. It's October 24th and 25th. It's the Adult Basic Skills Conference. It's here in Salem. I say here in Salem, like we're all standing in Salem, so sorry about that. I'm in Salem-ish. But that is a conference in Salem hosted by HEC, the Higher Education Commission. And so that's a great opportunity to learn about GED and other educational options that are out there. We will also be presenting there. So if you're there and see us, please say hi on that side. I believe registration is open currently. If that's an interest, we hope to be able to have our PD options out to you by then so that you can possibly use some of those funds. It's not a terribly expensive conference, but that could be something you might apply for as well. With that, I believe I now turn it to Molly.
Yes, thank you, Paul. Hopefully everybody can hear me. We're going to talk about data. And so we're just starting with some housekeeping. So some quick announcements. Just a reminder that the current Smartsheet Gov spreadsheet that you're using for participant data, you will be using the exact same spreadsheet for the second program year. And so we have sent out some instructions about how to copy over continuing students onto the same spreadsheet. And as a follow-up with this convening, we'll be also sending out those PDF instructions. The instructions are also on our YDD Technical Assistance website. So if you can't wait to get the follow-up from the convening, they are already on the YDD Technical Assistance website. And just to note that we also have an addendum to the data manual, as well as some frequently asked questions on the data manual that we have also posted to the YDD Technical Assistance website. And so those particular questions were questions that the grantees raised to us that we worked to try to update and give some clearer guidance or make corrections where they were needed. But the same data manual that you have is the main document, and then there's just a couple of attachments on the website. Another announcement, just to clarify, is as we're going through this end of year reporting for program 1 and finalizing the participant spreadsheets, we did get some requests from grantees that we build in a validation window where you would be able to validate program year 1 data. Primarily, it was around number of credits earned during the re-engagement program or credentials earned during the re-engagement program. So the program year 1 spreadsheet is, these are open for you to update data that you need for program year 1. So just to kind of let you know that. And a final announcement in this thread is that if you have had any changes in staffing, and there are people that originally had access to the participant spreadsheet, please email me and let me know, provide their name that they no longer need access to the spreadsheet, and we'll make sure that we remove their access. Okay, and my final announcement as this part of the data is we are forming an ad hoc data reporting advisory group. And so we'll be forming that in the fall. We anticipate in fall and or winter to have a couple meetings, possibly 3 meetings. The purpose of the data group would be to get your feedback on data collection and data reporting. And so as a follow-up to this convening, we will be sending out a general survey. And on that survey, you'll have an opportunity to express interest in basically helping us get a better data collection tool and information on re-engaged youth. Okay, so at this point, we're going to head into the data discussion part of this presentation, and we'll start with introducing a concept to you, which is the 5-year other than completer rate. The basis of this data is from the ODE media files, And then with some YDD analysis, we arrive at the 5-year other than completer rate. And so I'd like to explain what this is. So the ODE publishes a 5-year completer rate. And basically, we understand that as everything that counts as a graduate or completer after 5 years from entry into high school. So, so they're looking at the youth who entered in the fall of 2016, and then 5 years later, so primarily 19-year-olds, in spring of 2021, they would put out a 5-year completer rate. And so what we've done is we've taken that, done some additional analysis, and looked at, so who after 5 years of entering high school in 2016 did not end up with a high school diploma, a GED, or an adult high school diploma. And so last spring in 2021, there were 5,590 Oregon youth who, after 5 years, so 19-year-olds, did not have a high school diploma, adult high school diploma, or GED. And that was a little over 12% of the cohort that entered high school in 2016. So there's a couple different ways to think about this. One way of thinking about it is, of the incoming freshman class that's entering high school in fall, there's about 5,000 youth who are projected not to complete high school after 5 years. Another thing to keep in mind is, after that 5-year point where ODE is really tracking that data, where are those youth who's they're not part of that educational system at that point. And another way of looking, you can see that we've actually given several years, both during COVID and pre-COVID data here, is if we had 5,000 last spring, just kind of roughly multiplying by 3, is right now there's roughly 15,000 19, 20, and 21-year-olds across Oregon without a high school credential, is another thing to think of. And so when we're looking at data and working on the re-engagement system, we are looking to move the data on this 5-year other than completer and help the youth completing, so move this number, as well as really looking at those older youth. Paul, did you have something you wanted to add at this point, or should we just go to the next slide?
No, I think you're doing a great job explaining to Molly, in the sense that we recognize there's some challenges in the data. I guess that would be the other thing I would say is that some youth will end up getting their high school diploma at age 20, and they're not included in that. They're included in the 5-year other than completer rate, and they may have received it, but those numbers are relatively small across the state. And so just that focus on how can we really help reach the hardest to reach youth throughout Oregon, and the number of 15,000 or so of just a really rough estimate is pretty daunting when you stop to think about it. So we're hoping that over the course of the years we can impact that. We also recognize that this number won't just immediately change as we start to continue to engage youth and help support youth, because this is an indicator that is going to take several years to demonstrate that we've made an impact. But Molly, you're doing a great job of really summing up that work. So thank you.
Okay, so if we can just move 2 slides ahead. Yep. And so, Paul, that was a great segue into our re-engagement system data. And so what we did is we took a look at the 6-month data set from the first 6 months of the re-engagement grants. So January 2021 through June 2021. And there was a couple things that we wanted to look at. So the blue shaded portions of this pie chart are youth who had no out of school indicator in the data. So it's roughly 80%. And the red shaded portions are youth in our data set that had an indicator of being disconnected from school. And for this data, what we did is we looked at if the grantees had marked that the youth were on a dropout list for their program code, their program eligibility code. We looked to see if they had a not enrolled, not registered in school as an eligibility code. And we also looked at an entry status of not attending school at entry when they entered the re-engagement program. And so I gave you the wrong numbers, didn't I? I did. Sorry. We actually had 84% had no out of school indicator and 16% had an out of school indicator in this in that cohort. And the cohort that we pulled these numbers for were over 12,000 youth. And then the other thing that we're looking at is the older students. So the youth age 19, 20 and 21, and how many in that first 6 months of 19, 20, 21-year-olds were served through the re-engagement dollars. And we took those birth dates at the as of June 30th, 2021. And that's where we get that 20/80 split. So we had about 21% who were 19, 20 or 21 years old in the data. So about 20% of the data on that. Okay, so kind of keeping those numbers in mind and really thinking about the hardest to reach youth, the ones, you know, that have already exited the education system. What we'd like you to do, oops, I gotta put a link in the chat here.
Oh, yeah, I just sent it. It's in the chat.
Oh, great. So what we're sending to you is the 5-year other than completer rate by county. And it'd be great if you can open that now, because we're going to be putting you into breakout groups. You know, and kind of the bottom line here is what jumps out at you with the data. And the discussion question is, you know, are your re-engagement programs reaching these youth? Is someone in your network reaching these youth? And if you know of effective strategies for reaching the older youth, the youth who have, you know, indications of not being in school, if you have effective strategies for that, please definitely share those out in groups as well. So that, with that, we're ready to go into breakout groups. You'll have about 5 minutes. There's only going to be 3 people in the groups. So please do open that, link in the chat before you jump into your group.
And just a reminder, this actually does not have a facilitator as well. So it's just 3 randomly assigned people. So you may need to introduce yourselves on that side.
And
The link that I shared.
Say Ava.
Yes. Were you able to access that link? Sorry, you were just on the bottom of my screen. Yeah, that's the only name I could see because I'm sharing.
Yeah, I was able to.
Okay.
Oh,
Perfect.
awesome.
We had
Okay.
a slight panic moment that we didn't think it was opening.
Okay, so at this point, we just wanted to open up discussion to any burning questions that you might have on this data portion. And we have a couple of staff here who can, kind of address any questions that you might have. And yes, please, you're welcome to just unmute and ask away. Go ahead,
Awesome.
Natalie.
Awesome.
Are these all? Oh,
I
okay.
know-
Yeah, go.
I know that we were probably one of the very first people to turn in our reporting just because of, we're trying to make it so that the students, the teacher doesn't, that the principal doesn't have to work in July. But then we only found out, a couple of weeks later that we had some problems with our smart sheet. So, anything that would tell people, ooh, you didn't fill this out properly or whatever, gives us a heads up, like, things don't add up or something. I think that's always great because, we always try our best, but anything to kind of make it dummy proof, like you can't leave because you forgot to fill in some, I don't know, cell or something. I think we're all happy to have those kinds of things. So
Thank you.
Sure.
Absolutely. Appreciate
Sure.
that feedback.
yes, of course.
So would it be like it lights up? Is that what you're imagining? Like the area that needs corrected would be lit up?
Oh, if you're talking to me, well, like sometimes when you fill in things like this thing doesn't add up to 100, or you forgot to fill in a certain cell and it won't let you like save or, end the thing, because I'm not the one who filled out the smart sheet. Our principal and our community schools coordinator filled it out. But it turns out, I guess there were some errors. And so to the extent that anything like is automated, like this doesn't add up, or you forgot to add something, just something that would say this cell is red because, I don't know, you're lacking important information before, we close it up or something. So just ways to be able to check our own work. I would think it's great because that is a very daunting smart sheet and it's very hard to see. Did I fill out everything? Well, I think I did. I don't know. So.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And Natalie, just to quickly kind of address that a little bit. Yes, I think I agree with you in the sense that if we can get those systems, we decided to go with smart sheets to try to make it easier than an Excel. Not sure if that worked or not. So I think the jury's still out on that. But we have a couple of organizations that are actually trying some different tools out there. So hopefully we can learn as we're developing it, because case in point, and I know Molly and Jared were talking about just on the flip side of the grant reviewers reviewing it. Yeah, it's a daunting task on both sides. So if we can try to find some ways, and that's part of the reason why I think Molly's wanting to pull together that ad hoc committee so we can look at some different options as we move forward. So very good point.
Are we able to print reports from that spreadsheet?
Sorry. There's how do I say? No, maybe is the easiest way. There's ways where we can work with IT development to do different things. But we did the pilot for these 2 years, and then we'll kind of move forward from there. So we certainly can convert it to Excel files and do pivot tables and all sorts of things, of course. And Smartsheet has some reporting capability, but I think we need a stable product and a stable reporting collection and reporting system. And then we'll move forward on that. I've got somebody just messaged, we have a hand raised, and I wanted to just a little bit be on time. Are we talking about the 5-year other than completer, or at this point?
I think the floor is open. Sorry.
Oh, okay,
Celeste.
floor's open. So Celeste, yes.
That's one of my questions is like, are we talking about the 5-year completer data? Because I could ask a variety of questions about that whole data sheet. That's interesting to me. But in response to Natalie, I guess I would just say, as a community partner that is not necessarily directly embedded in the school data, it would be very difficult for me to move past that smart sheet if I could not have blanks on it until I got more information. And I'm very much looking forward to the ad hoc group talking about data reporting. As there is, yeah, I think there's some challenges for all types of partners, and the best way to get this much data in. And I don't know if Smartsheet or Excel's better. Smartsheet seems fine the longer I spend in it. I don't know. But that for this 5-year completer, this is like a new term to me, like 5-year completer, looking at people for the full 5-year span, because I'm not, my background's in direct service out of like shelters, not in school districts and how the data is reported. And so is this all, I guess to begin with, are these numbers, is this just ODE reporting? Are these like the numbers for all students across these counties that entered school in 2016 up till now? Or is it just like students that have been funded by YDD grants?
Bill can probably answer that question the best. And so, Bill, do you want to talk a little bit about that adjusted cohort?
Yes. So I'll give a real quick, your cohort is determined by high school entry year. And most youth enter high school in their freshman year. So that would, but if a youth started in 8th grade, somehow skipped 9th grade and started high school in 10th grade, their cohort, even though they're a 10th grader, that's their first year in high school. So it's not a direct link to what grade you're in. It's the year you start high school that's your cohort designation. The only way that you can leave the cohort is a very restrictive process. The most obvious one is death. Death would get you removed from the denominator of the cohort, which is that's why it's called the adjusted cohort. Another way is if you move out of state and they receive the paperwork. And so ultimately, as we were pointing out, that other than completer rate at the 5 years is looking at activity over that full 5 years. So your non-completers could leave their freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, or 5th year, and then they would be counted as a non-completer. And that's the numerator of the equation. The denominator is everybody in that cohort. And then the numerator would be for the other than completer rate are those youth that did not earn a designation as a completer.
And I think, Bill, just one to add thing on that is it's what's reported back to the school or the district that last had that youth. So that's kind of a key piece. So a youth may leave the state, graduate from another state, and we don't have that information back. You kind of lose that information. So there is some holes in that sense, I guess, but it's one of the most solid numbers we have for youth not completing the K-12 system.
As a piece of information, Oregon has one of the most rigorous denominator determinants, and it consistently results in Oregon posting low graduation rates comparatively. But a key indicator is to look at the size of the cohort at entry and then the adjusted cohort. And if a lot of youth have left the denominator, that's some states have real easy ways to do that, and that'll boost their graduation rate. But then specifically, I think to the question is that it is every high school student in a public type high school in Oregon. So it is, it's typically you can see the adjusted cohort at the state rate usually comes in around 45,000 students. And so if you multiply that by 4, that gives you an idea of how many youth are in high school in any given year.
That's kind of the catch with the re-engagement, right? Is if they disengage from their high school of last known record, then they cease to be counted basically unless they re-enroll in another like Oregon-based public high school. Is that accurate?
So they're always counted in the
Mhm.
denominator. And so it's
Right,
very
okay.
tough to leave the denominator unless you have official paperwork.
Unless there's paperwork connected.
Yes.
And
So like Paul said, a youth could move to Florida and actually continue high school successfully and graduate. But if the school in Florida doesn't report the transfer back to the state of Oregon, then that youth remains in the denominator. And so the larger the denominator is, impacts, it impacts the calculation of the rate.
how about like online GED programs or online like high school completion programs that have addresses in multiple states or admin in states outside of Oregon?
So that's getting a little bit technical, but Paul referenced
yeah.
that every student in Oregon will also have an associated resident district and attending district. And so that is how they're looped in. And so as long as it's pretty much, if you're, say, for example, your classic like Jesuit high school in Portland, right? That's an example of a private school. None of those students are counted. Any of your private schools that are not states, sponsored private there's a charter kind of classification that can count in the public education. But the easiest way to think of these are kids that are participating in any form, whether it's online or not, that are considered public school students.
All right.
For example, if you never went to school in Oregon at all, you would not show up in this number.
Okay.
So if you just moved in from California, type of thing, Oregon has no record of you. You're not in that denominator.
So I know that we're right about an hour, and there's probably some more questions that people are generating around this new number. I think just kind of given an idea of where we're at with it, we wanted to introduce it at the convening, as we are going to continue to expand it as part of the concept around the applications and trying to establish the need in counties throughout, as you saw in that document with it. So definitely more to come on it. We're trying to find where our numbers or where our data can align with some of the solid information that we come out that are developing out of the ODE, or that's already established in ODE. It's not developing. This is a pretty established number out of ODE. So more to come. Please do reach out. I know Bill, Molly, myself, and Jared are all happy to talk a little bit more about it. One of the things that we used, if you didn't look at the collaborative grant RFA process, is we included this as kind of a priority region. And so when we saw some regions that had some really high 5-year non-complete or other than completer rates, that's where we wanted to kind of focus in on some of this re-engagement work, knowing that there's a lot of youth that have disconnected in those counties. There's also some counties that do have a really small number and percentage. And so we want to learn from that as well, what's happening and why in those areas. So I'm monitoring the chat. I think the next slide is a break. We're going to take just a 5-minute break. Looking that it doesn't seem like there's any more questions. I can't see the whole screen, or everybody online. So Joy, just want to connect. And Jared, is there anybody that has their hand raised that we didn't get to?
No, you're all good.
All right, perfect. Thank you. So, all right. So we'll see you back here at 12:10.
Great. Welcome back, everybody. So we are going to move into another breakout where we're going to talk about some rules changes upcoming to our OARs, our statutes. And so we're just going to break into 3 groups for that. Paul and Molly and I will each join a group, and we'll just facilitate this discussion. Paul, Molly, is there anything to add before we jump into these groups? I think we're going to spend about 15 minutes in this discussion.
Yes, I just wanted to do a time check. You already hit it. So we're going to go till 12:23-ish. Is that what I hear. And Joy, are you going to pull us back? Is that the plan? Okay.
All right, perfect.
All right. Gross. Jared, are you froze?
Oh, maybe I was muted. Can you see me?
Okay. Yes, I can see you. And I apologize to my group. I got cut off as we kicked back. Just to check in with Molly and Jared, did you guys get to eligible D? We didn't in our conversation, eligibility D, or the.
I did.
Okay.
We kind of raced at the very end.
Fair enough. So I think I'll just kind of jump in here real quick to summarize that, because I know I got interrupted a bit. We got pulled back, which is totally fine. The reason we brought up what we call eligibility D, which is the 3 or more credits behind than their peers, is that we recognize that that's a very important flexible option for youth that are really disengaged. It's a way to get them in the door, that they may not have all of the other characteristics of drop school and those options. The reason we're bringing it up is we're also trying to wrestle with the flip side of that, is with that flexibility, sometimes maybe your school district counterparts or some of your school boards might see it as an opportunity to just put youth that you don't know what to do with that are 3 or more credits behind, that they aren't really disengaged. And so we want to allow the flexibility, but also help support you in making sure that it doesn't just become this kind of drop center alternative ed option, which is very important supporting youth, but it may change that focus on reconnecting youth that are truly disengaged. And so there's that fine line that we're trying to learn from you all on it. So more conversation to come on that for sure. And I know that as our site visits have gone through, we've definitely visited with many of you on that, and trying to brainstorm and do some technical assistance support as we can within that. So I don't know if I missed anything, Molly or Jared, of why we put that question D in there. I'm going to try to share my screen while Jared's taking it over.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what we talked about. Thank you.
All right, just about there.
Great. And I'm gonna get the link and drop that into the chat. Okay.
Jared, do you have the link?
I will in one moment.
And I think it's you, correct?
I think it is. Okay, so in the chat right now, you should see a link that just came through, and that is going to take you to an Outlook Excel document. Same system that you all use to get into your expenditure reports and your some of the data reports. So hopefully you're all able to get in. If you can't, please let us know in the chat. But that is going to be where we're going to do our next 2 breakout activities. So what we're going to do is we're going to break you out in a couple different ways. First by role, and then by organization type. So we thought it would be valuable to group people together based sort of on the type of work that you all do together, and then group people together based on the type of organization you are. And so what you're going to do is when you get into that Excel spreadsheet, you will see 3 tabs on, oh, thanks, Paul. You'll see 3 tabs on the bottom. You'll see direct youth service at the bottom. You'll see executive directors leadership, and you'll see program managers and operations. So what you're going to do, we will break you out into the breakout rooms. You'll see when the breakout rooms come up that you can select one of those. So we ask that you select whichever one most appropriately describes your role. So when you get in there, you'll be with a bunch of other people who do similar type of work that you do. and you'll go into that spreadsheet and you'll find that tab on the bottom. So if you are working directly with youth, if you're a navigator, if you're a coach, mentor, you have that interface with youth, you're going to go to Direct Youth Service. If you're an executive director, leadership position, principal, you'll go to that second tab, and so on, program managers and operations, then third tab. And you'll see those questions at the top. And we just ask that you start off and you take about 10 minutes. You can do this silently if you want. You can chat amongst yourselves and just go through and see what jumps out at you and just start typing answers. You don't have to answer every question. You might get to every question, you might not, but just start typing in there. Please be careful that you don't type over other people, because there is a couple second delay, so you might not see that somebody else is typing in the same cell as you. So just sort of recommend that, when you're going down in the cells, maybe jump a few down, so you're not going to type over somebody else, and we'll just clean that up afterwards. Doesn't have to be, it can be messy. We'll make it all organized afterwards, and we'll send this out and compile it at the end. So yeah, that's pretty much it. You'll jump in for about 10 minutes. You'll take some time, answer those questions, and then you'll have about 5 minutes where we'll just sort of open it up to the group to discuss and get your thoughts. Paul and Molly and I will each be in one of the groups. So we'll be there to help if you have questions. I see a hand raised.
Hello. Do you want us to identify what organization we're with in our cell?
I don't, you certainly can if you want to. I don't think it's necessary. You don't have to.
Okay, thanks.
But yeah, you can. All right, makes sense. Anybody having issues accessing the document? No? Okay, so you'll see here, Molly is going to be, oh, we're fine. We'll be in one of the breakout rooms each. Okay.
Sorry about that, Jared. I jumped the gun.
No, you're good. You're good. Thank you all for participating in that. I was watching as you were all typing, and we've got some great info coming in. So again, we'll compile all of this and we will send that to you. Next, same thing, but we're going to break out by organization type this time. So again, let me put the link to the next one. All right, 1 second. Okay, so that link should take you to the next breakout. If you could just access that before you jump into the breakouts. We realized some people got in and couldn't see the link in the chat anymore, but I think we can just resend it when we get in. But just open that up. This one is going to be by organization type. So if you are a school or a school district, you will find that tab at the bottom and go there. If you are a nonprofit or a CDO, you'll find that tab and go there. And if you're an ESD, workforce board, local government, or community college, you'll find that tab and go there. Again, we only have about 10 minutes left for this whole thing. So I think we'll just probably maybe cut it off at about 8 minutes, if that works. And same activity.
Hey, Jared.
Yes.
So we are both a school district and a nonprofit, because we have our own schools that we serve, and we are a formal nonprofit. So
I would say if you fall into both categories, my gut is saying go into school, but I might, yeah, Paul's nodding. Yeah, I would say go into school.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. We've got everybody coming back in. Thank you all so much. We were all monitoring what you were typing in there, and there's some fantastic stuff in there. So thank you for your participation in that. Final thing, I know we are at time pretty much, but before you leave, we would love if you have an extra 10 minutes or so. We have a survey that we are going to put in the chat here. Let me make sure I have the right link. That should be correct. Yes, so that will take you to a survey. Let me know if you have any problems getting into the survey right now. And if you have to jump off, that's fine. If you have time afterwards or during, please complete the survey. We really do get a lot of great feedback from these surveys, and it's really helpful for us as we plan these events going forward. Thank you all so much. Thank you for spending these 2 hours with us. Great information. We hope you got some value out of it. I know it's always valuable for us to hear your insights and feedback and hear from the people doing the work on the ground. And thank you again for all the hard work you do. YDD staff, anybody else have any final things to add?
I can't talk apparently. That's unusual. But we'll hang on. The YDD staff will hang on if you have questions or want to chat with us on that side. But again, like Jared's saying, just appreciate your guys' time and all the work that you're doing out and about. It's been awesome to be at many of your sites over the past, well, I believe it's about 4 months at this point that we've been out and about. So I look forward to when we get to meet in person again.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
So I don't know how I missed the memo that it started at 11 because my calendar invite said 12:30.
Oh. Interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's
not sure why.
So I was looking back through the actual like calendar invite like information and it said 11 and I'm like, that's why I'm being dropped into like a room right now. I'm like, everybody seems to have gotten the memo but me that it started at 11 because my calendar invite says 12:30.
You know, Melody, when we switched from Microsoft environment to on desktop to 365, I noticed that several of us had that problem, that the time was not synced to the online version of Microsoft calendar online on the 365 environment. But I'm so sorry that happened. And it just meant that you missed the data presentation. So
dang it.
But unfortunately they recorded, so I think we can send you the
Okay.
link.
Well, I was looking forward to that and the update for the next grant cycle.
Yeah, it's there, and we kept the recording just during the whole group part. So I think yeah, just be sure to ask any questions that you might have on follow up with that. Yeah.
Okay. I was like,
Yeah.
everybody else is here. How did I miss the memo? How did I screw this up?
And then the breakout groups by roles and entity, those links, you know, just if, you can just throw your ideas.
I did.
Excellent.
Feverishly was typing away.
Nice.
So I just wanted to say, like, I didn't like intend to be late and pop into the group late. But
no, of course.
So
we're just grateful you were here.
I will just go back and rewatch when you guys post the video. So
thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend.
You too.
Bye.
Hey, Tony, I was going to say thanks for all the communication. Hopefully we got all the access stuff sorted out. If we need that data, let Molly know. She'll get it to him. Oh, you're muted.
There, I found the mute button again.
It's all good.
Yeah. Yeah. When we change people around, it takes a little while to get everybody on the same page again.
And I wasn't sure if you wanted her the whole plethora of the smart sheet or not. So if that's the case, just let us know and we'll get it out. I didn't want to overwhelm her on, I'm sure, relatively recent start. So
yeah. Yeah. So no, I think just what you got her is good.
Perfect. Sounds good. Okay. Hey, Scott, thanks for joining us too. It was nice to see you. And I will say, you don't have a jail cell. You had a nice little conference room when we were down there.
Yeah, no. The jail cell's kind of a joke. And it is Friday, so it's appropriate, right?
I agree.
It was good to see lots of people that I haven't seen for a while.
Yeah.
This is kind of a more specific group. And I got to say, I enjoyed the data. It gave me an idea of the numbers and where you guys are coming from. And I'd like to see that data move and know that we are.
Yeah, and Melody is one of giving a lot of feedback and really helping us to understand that data sheet. So I think she knows that she's asked a lot of questions, and so thank you. It's good that was useful.
We're throwing a lot of, well, not where or the state of Oregon, wherever you want to see, is throwing a lot of money at this problem. Do they have goals that you have or are expected to reach?
Specific to re-engagement, it's kind of those very broad goals that we've set based off of legislation. We actually don't have like this required report that some of like Future Ready has a required 3 data points, I believe, right, Jared? I think it's 3 things we have to specifically report to. Re-engagement is not. And so that's why we're trying to create kind of a point to take a look at so we can actually see if it's working, right? Because in theory, if we get more youth re-engaged and completing high school, we'll see those numbers on both the 5-year completer and 5-year non-completer rate change over time.
Yeah. I mean, and in that data that we presented, re-engagement had 250 plus credentials earned in that particular cohort. So it's, yeah, and I'm not saying they were all 19 and younger, but it's still, I mean, I think re-engagement is moving the dial on that. But I think the point of really understanding who our youth are and really reaching the youth that are the hardest to reach, that we're not just pulling the youth who are closest and easiest to get that high school credential and transition, but that we're really able to create structures and processes that if a youth is really ready to complete school and move to post-secondary, that we've got a system in place for them. And as they move around too, that we don't lose them to relocation and whatnot.
So one of the things I would throw out, you talk about post-secondary. I don't know if they are using trade schools, and when we look at the work readiness or work source type of teacher ready money that's coming down the pike, that one's expecting us to follow them a year even after they're out of our program, showing that they're actually becoming taxpayers, things like that. I mean, to me, I'm braiding it naturally because I'm getting funding from both sides. But as far as the state level, walking these kids through, yeah, we finished you on your education. Yeah, now you're productive in society and you're actually paying taxes. Because otherwise we're going to have this gap, right? Oh, I finished my high school diploma. What do I do next?
No, Scott, that is so important, that what we all know working with the youth that are, at the point where they're needing support and resources to complete high school, is there's definitely a gap to the next step. And I don't know that the system is, for youth or adults, is adequately addressing that gap, because you get them to a certain point, but if the funding cuts or there's not a bridge program, if you will, than actually moving into a family sustaining wage for the rest of their lives, it can be a very challenging goal. And so it's, I mean, we often think in education as some kind of a pipe or a continuum. And I think we do need to be thinking about those transition points and really understanding what the various populations in front of us, what is needed. And what happens is the community college has a certain number of enrollments and this and that. And if they're at full capacity, they're not really going to be looking at the needs of our particular groups of youth. And so I don't have the answer, but I think it's a very important point that you're making.
Yeah, your funding streams they're starting to merge. And I know when we started looking at the 18 to 24-year-olds, I didn't see any funding streams coming up, but I know it needed to be addressed. And all of a sudden WorkSource is working their way down. You're working your way up. They are merging in the middle. And the last thing before I leave you guys is I want to tell Tony I want to come and play on his toys.
Anytime. Open invitation, Scott.
Jared and I were not very good on flying.
I did not get to fly that
put out there.
plane.
We did not.
I would like to try to fly that plane if I'm ever invited back. That looked pretty cool.
Again, anytime all of you guys want to come on down.
Thank you. Just make good point of it.
Yeah. I crashed real fast.
I think I was doing barrel rolls trying to land. It didn't work very well.
Did better than I did.
I'm glad it was memorable. All right.
Oh, absolutely. Well, thank you guys.
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks for
it.
the afternoon.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
Yeah.
Good luck with the school year for both of you.
Thanks.
All right. So I know we're meeting at 12, right?